Ryan to remind me of that. Ryan fell down on the job. All right. And you're hiding the door that's typically behind you where little people come in and out during our class. I usually enjoy seeing them come in and out, but you're hiding them today. Now it's just this weird person who looks like he's actually in your house, but he's not really there. I figured that out. See that?
Did you watch The Office?
I have never watched The Office, not once.
Okay.
Oh, is that who that is?
This is the background, yeah.
Okay, got it. So where to start? Well, you know what? Why don't you pick? Look at that list. Where do you want to start? What discussion do you want to have first?
For sale by owners.
For sale by owners. For sale by owners. So let's start there. So my first question is, for those of you who have been around for a little while, are for sale by owners, so I'm going to ask two different questions. The first is, are for sale by owners a valid source of business in our area? And the second question is, do we have volume of for sale by owners in our area? So the first question, is it a valid source of business? Yes, it absolutely is, right? It absolutely is, because they exist. Can you make a living out of for sale by owners where we live and work? Not really. Not really. Right? Because we don't have the volume of for sale by owners that exist in other parts of the country, right? Maybe even in other parts of our state. Why do you think that is? There's a reason behind that. Go ahead, John.
I would imagine time and money.
So that's exactly right. We live and work in Fairfield County, Connecticut, right? And for all intents and purposes, it's one of the most affluent counties in the country. And so where we live and work, we have a higher percentage of people who earn at higher levels, who would just as much rather, wow, I didn't say that very well, who would far rather hire someone to provide that service than take it on themselves. It is not 100% across the board, because again, for sale by owners do exist, and yet generally speaking, we just don't see the volume of them locally that we do perhaps in other parts of the state or even parts of the country. That being said, they do pop up, right? They do pop up. And so let me give you, I'm going to what? Let me walk you through a quick version of how to work with or handle for sale by owners. And I'll give you some pointers on what not to do as well. And if it's all right with you, we're going to use this as a launch pad into an expired conversation, because the two are sort of similar, right? They are sort of similar. It's funny, Spencer has this weird arm just coming out of nowhere next to him. Who is that sitting next to you? Introduce me. Hello, I'm Rick.
This is my wonderful girlfriend, Abigail.
Hello, Abigail. It's lovely to meet you.
Doing her law school work.
Lovely to see more than your arm. All of a sudden, I'm just seeing this arm go da-dum, 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 da-dum.
Yep.
Like, what is that? Anyway, sorry. I'm quickly very distracted apparently today, right? It's like squirrel. But now I can just do Abigail instead of squirrel. So for sale by owners, the first thing you want to know about for sale by owners is that just like almost any other opportunity that you have, you don't want to make the for sale by owner wrong, right? I will tell you that from a client services perspective, the second you make somebody wrong, you're not the one who's getting hired, right? And so you have to find ways to help consult with people who might well be wrong about how they're thinking about something, without making them feel wrong, right? And we'll dive into that deeper when we work through our consulting scripts. But from a for sale by owner perspective, I see a lot of people make the mistake of reaching out to a for sale by owner and saying things like, "Hey, Mr. and Mrs. for sale by owner, it's Rick Scott. I can't quite imagine why you would want to do what you're doing on your own and not hire a real estate agent to do it. Don't you know that only 7 or 10% of for sale by owners actually succeed in selling their home on their own, and of that percentage, almost half of them utilize or have a real estate agent involved on the buyer side. So why? That is not the path to success with the for sale by owner, because you've immediately made them feel wrong and a little bit stupid, right, for doing what they're doing. Do houses sell without real estate agents? Sure they do, right? And so if we might start to see, I don't know that we've seen it yet, but we might start to see if this kind of the pace of the market continues the way it is, we may well see some additional for sale by owners than we have in the past, simply because there's so much demand and not a lot of supply, right? That's kind of a perfect storm for a for sale by owner, right? So here's what I would do. Excuse me, let me give you one more other don't before I give you the do. The other don't with for sale by owners is don't call a for sale by owner and tell them that you have buyers unless you really have someone who is interested in seeing the house. It is my opinion that telling the truth should kind of trump almost anything you do, right? So I'm often asked, does it make sense to call and say, I may have potential buyers? Well, if that's the truth, then sure. But don't call and say, hey, I have a buyer for your house. Can I come and see it, or can I show it? And then use your brother and his wife as buyers just to get in the house. Here's why I say that. First of all, transparently, I have done that. And you know what? When I look back at some of the things I did in my early days, I'm not sure there's integrity behind that, right? And I share with you the truth that I did do some of those things, and I'll give you some more juicy tidbits as we go, because I've done a lot of things in my career, and I use a lot of them as examples today of, you know what, I think there's a better way for you to move forward, to launch or relaunch your business, and to not have to do some of the swarmy salesman type stuff, right? Unfortunately, I didn't have anyone to teach me anything when I got into the business, and so I had to learn that on my own. I had to learn that some of that stuff comes back to you, because when you show up with your brother and your sister-in-law as potential buyers, and at some point somebody figures it out, and now you've lost credibility, right? So here's what I would do, other than not lie, because that you should just write down and underline as like a common foundational theme throughout anything we talk about. Stick with the truth. Don't tell people things that you think they want to hear if they're simply not true. From a for sale by owner perspective, what you do want to do is you want to reach out and congratulate them. What I have learned in my career is that what sets you apart and what makes people want to have another conversation with you is when you do something unexpected, right? And so when you're a real estate agent and you're calling a for sale by owner to say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. for sale by owner, I saw that you're looking to sell your home on your own. Congratulations. That sounds like an awesome journey. I'm curious, how's that going? And they'll either tell you or they won't. They'll be short, or they'll give you the whole 9 yards about how it's going. And they're waiting. They're waiting for you to tell them that they will not succeed, to tell them that they're making a mistake, to ask them for an appointment to list the house. And because that's what they're waiting for, you won't do any of those things. You see how much fun this is? And instead, you'll say something to the effect of, I do make it my business to keep all properties, whether they're officially on the market or not, right? Because to me, if you're for sale by owner, you're not officially on the market, right? And I want to make sure that people understand that there's a difference. So, I make it my business to touch base and make sure I understand what is officially on the market and all the homes that are not. And I can promise you that if I should have somebody who crosses my my radar that might fit the criteria that your home offers, would it be okay if I gave you a shout back to bring those buyers by? See, I'm now talking about buyers in the what if scenario, which is rooted more in the truth. No for sale by owner says no to that, by the way. Great. Is this the best number to reach you at? Yes. Great. Is there an email address I could take just in case I can't reach you here? Great. Thanks so much. Mr. and Mrs. for sale by owner, I've been doing this for a long time, or if that's not you, right? Mr. and Mrs. for sale by owner, I'm curious, I want to just make an offer to you. If you run into any issues, I'm happy to share whatever knowledge I have with you, so don't hesitate to give me a call. Again, my name is Rick Scott, and I can be reached at this number. Thank you so much for your time today. Enjoy your weekend. Bye-bye. And I'm going to tell you what, if you just have one of those conversations and you never ask them for anything, they hang up the phone and they're kind of like, what just happened? What just happened? I'll answer that question in a second, John. And so you've now set yourself apart. You've now, if other people are calling, they're not doing what you just did, which is sounding human, telling the truth, offering help and assistance to help them succeed at what they're trying to do, and then wishing them good day. Everybody else who's calling them is asking them for something. They want something from them. Make sense? So what do you do next? Then what you do is every single Monday morning, like you put them in your calendar, and every single Monday morning, you give them a call back. Hey, Mr. and Mrs. for sale by owner, it's Rick Scott. Just checking in. We just had an exhausting weekend in real estate, and I'm just calling to check in to see. I'm curious, is your home sold? That's question number one. Is your home sold? No. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. I'm curious, what was your traffic like this weekend? That's question two. What was your traffic like this weekend? It was busy, it was not, we had some people call, but they didn't show up, whatever they say. Got it. I'm curious, is there anything I can assist you with this morning? Any help that you need? That's question three. No, I don't think so. I think we're all good. We're going to keep plugging along. Excellent. Well, you know what? If you have any questions or I can help in any way, you know where to reach me. Have a great week. Bye. So you just call to check in, ask those three questions, and you don't ask for anything else again. Guess what happens? A week goes by, and the following Monday, you pick up the phone and you call again. Guess what you do? You do the exact same thing. You ask the exact same questions. Can you see over time, most for sale by owners, in my experience, last about a month, maybe 6 weeks if they have a lot of fortitude, right? But anywhere from 3 to 6 weeks is about the length of time most for sale by owners last. And what I've learned over time is if you're the one who's still calling to check in after that 3 to 4 week period of time, you're the only one who's still touching base and calling. Anybody else who started to pursue that stopped calling a week or two ago. And what you're doing is, by asking those same 3 questions, every single Monday, you are reminding the seller prospect, without having to say it, that what they're doing isn't working. Right? Is the house sold? What was your traffic like? Is there anything I can do to help? And what I have experienced is that by week 4, week 5, week 6, sometimes on those calls, when you get to, is there anything I can do to help? They say, well, now you've got an in. Because as soon as there's a well, it almost doesn't matter what comes next. It could be a, well, yes, please come over and list my house. Or, well, could you come over and talk to us? Or, well, can I ask you a few questions? Or, well, what is your experience with homes like mine? Doesn't matter. Now they're engaging you, and they're engaging you as a real estate professional. So you're now the person that they're going to for that information. Make sense? Do you see how that works? It's a powerful system, and it does work. Okay, so let's go into the chat here. John asked, if you have a buyer for their house, why would they list with you as opposed to hearing an offer? So, well, they likely wouldn't, right? If they're protecting brokers, if you really did have a buyer for their house. Now that happens too, right? Remember, when you get signed when you sign buyers under our buyer agreement, you're saying that you'll search everywhere for a house, not just look at the MLS. And so oftentimes you may drive past a for sale by owner and say, wow, that house could be perfect for the Smiths. You call the for sale by owner, and then you can certainly say, I am working with a couple who I think maybe your house might make sense for. Would you mind if I stopped by to preview it? Right? That's a different conversation if you actually do have a buyer for the house. You preview the house. Wow, so I'm curious, Mr. and Mrs. For sale by owner, are you protecting brokers? What does that mean? It means they'll pay the buy side commission, right? Protecting brokers means if you represent someone, I'll pay the buy side of the commission. They'll still save the list side because there's no listing agent, but I'll pay the buy side of the commission. And if they are, great, can we make an appointment to bring my buyers back? There's not always a list side available with for sale by owners, right? If you legitimately have buyers, unless you can convince them that having representation would also benefit them. I've worked out deals with for sale by owners where I did have a buyer and sat with them to say, look, in this scenario, I represent these buyers solely, which means anything that I know about you and your sale, I have to disclose to them. You have no one to help guide you through the process. And I solely represent the buyers. I'm curious, would it make sense for you to hire me to represent both sides of the transaction? We could do that at a discounted rate. So I've already offered a for sale by owner. Sure, I'll collect my 2.5% or 3% on the buy side, and an extra 1% to represent you as well. If that's a listing where all I have to do is show the house once and then facilitate it to the closing, I haven't had to put it on the market and market it and spend time and all that stuff. That's an extra 1% in my pocket that is just fine for me. The system I was talking about was if you're really looking for listing opportunities over the long term. Does that help answer that, John? Perfect. What if they asked you for a CMA but don't want you to list it? Do it. Do it. Give them every ounce of information that they want for free without any promises. And sometimes when you do that, they will utilize all of your information and do it on their own, and there's not an opportunity for you. And sometimes they will take all of your information and list it with somebody else anyway. because they always had somebody in mind anyway. But since you offered, we might as well take you up on the information. You have to not be attached to the outcome of this, guys, right? You have to go through the process and do the activities, knowing that sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. So anytime I've had for sale by owners ask me to work through a CMA, so that turns into a listing appointment, right? We can have a listing appointment. I can give you an opportunity to work with me on what it would look like if I were to list it, and still have you go another 3 or 4 weeks as a for sale by owner. That's okay. I've had for sale by owners call me and say, you know what, Rick, somebody said something about some kind of property disclosure. What is that? Oh yeah, that's state law. Do you not have one of those? No. Oh goodness, you know what? You probably need to have one of those pretty quickly. So would it be okay if I stopped by on my way home today and dropped you off the required disclosures? They don't say no to that. And if you're the one who continually helps and helps and helps and helps and helps, at some point when they look to list, you have a far better chance of getting that appointment than anybody else. Do you see how that works? So whatever they ask for, give it. Now, I know people who think that that's kind of heresy, right? Why would you give away your services for free? Well, because you're attempting to win trust. And again, in the world of for sale by owners, the reason that they're not listed with a real estate agent to begin with is because they don't trust that there's value in hiring a realtor. So what you're doing by giving and giving and giving without asking anything in return is you're building a relationship. You're building that trust. So that when they do throw up their hands and say, I don't want to do this anymore, you're the one that they turn to. Make sense? Questions, comments, concerns on for sale by owner? All right, where do you want to go next? Go back to your list.
Expired.
Expireds. Yeah, let's go to the expired side of things. I love me them expireds. Here's what I mean by that. Expired sellers, or I should say it differently, owners of expired properties, right? Because expired sellers, you might need a Ouija board to reach, and that becomes even far more difficult than getting their phone numbers. Right? So owners of expired properties have already done two things, right? They've raised two hands. What are the two hands that they've raised? And I'm talking about in terms of anybody else that you might reach out to, like versus reaching into your database. These folks have already raised two hands. What hands have they raised?
They want to list with an agent?
So the first hand they've raised is, I want to sell my house, right? Like your database hasn't raised that hand every single time. As a matter of fact, a lot of your database hasn't raised that hand. You can get through your entire database and not have somebody who's raised that hand. But this person has already said, I want to sell my house. And the more important one is where Lisa just went. I want to list it with a real estate agent. Right? So I want to sell my house and I want to hire someone to do it for me. Here's the good news. When someone has said, I want to sell my house and I want to hire a real estate agent, guess what? That's what you do. So the answer sometimes is, thank goodness I called. So let's dive into what the expired scenario really looks like. There are two expired scenarios I want to throw your way today. And they're the same and different all at the same time. The first scenario are current expireds. Right? So it's the expired that happened. When do expired properties actually expire?
When the contract expires.
Correct. So when the contract expires, and on the MLS, if that contract expired today, the 24th of July, when does it actually go from being an active listing to an expired listing?
12:01 Saturday.
You got it, midnight, right? So it's midnight. As soon as the second it's no longer the 24th, if the 24th is the expiration date, right? It becomes an expired property. So on the MLS, you will find EXPD next to, you can run a report every single morning to find the current expireds. What if it's withdrawn? This is a test from earlier in the week.
No, no, no.
That's correct. Right? So withdrawns are a no-no. Canceled or expireds, yes, you can reach out, right? And do verify that information by putting the address in a search and making sure that there's nothing additional that might need to show up for you. And so the second path for expireds are old expireds. So you've got current expireds, but then you have old expireds. Now, old expireds, as I think I mentioned earlier this week, that could be a property that was on the market in 2010, a decade ago, that was on, never sold. You can do the research right on the MLS to make sure it never sold. Maybe it never came back. There's a version of calling into expireds, which is why I think it's such an unlimited opportunity. If you have a decade or a dozen years worth of old expireds to call through, right? There's almost never a time where you can't be reaching out to somebody to have a conversation. So let's start with the old expireds and we'll work to our current expireds. When you're dialing through the old expireds, it's important that you make sure that you're asking questions. And what that means is don't call and have what I call diarrhea of the mouth, right? Because sometimes we kind of vomit out all this information onto people instead of calling and asking some great questions. So let's do this. Who wants to play with me a little bit? Ryan, can you unmute?
Yeah.
So Ryan's going to be the expired person, and again, his house was on the market years ago. And just make up your answers. You don't need to be scripted on this.
Okay.
Ring ring.
Hello?
Ring ring. Yes. Hi. Is this Ryan?
Yes, it is.
Hi, Ryan. This is Rick Scott with Keller Williams Realty. You don't know me. I just was running through some old information and saw that you had your house on the market like in 2010, a decade ago. That was a tough time to be a seller, don't you think?
Certainly was.
Yeah, indeed. And so listen, I don't mean to take up too much of your time, but the reason for my call today is I'm just reaching back, kind of back in time, if you will, and talking to sellers who didn't create success in the sale of their home back the last time we had a shift, to let them know about the opportunities that exist for them as sellers in the current market today. I'm curious, are you aware of what's going on in the market today for sellers?
Not really. Haven't been following it too much.
Yeah. So I find that that's the case with a lot of folks that I'm talking to. And would it surprise you to know that we are in an inventory shortage? There is so much demand for property that we've actually run out of houses to sell. Does that surprise you?
I heard something about it on the news.
Yeah, indeed. What else did you hear? I'm curious.
I hear that a lot of people from New York are moving here.
That is accurate. That is accurate. It's certainly driving some of the inventory shortage. So Ryan, I'm curious, knowing that the market today is so beneficial for sellers, have you considered perhaps being a seller again, maybe creating some success this time around?
Haven't really given it too much thought.
Got it. And so I'm curious, if I could take 20 or 30 minutes of your time and kind of walk through a scenario that might create a benefit in terms of you pulling some awesome equity out of the house that you currently own. Is that something that might be worth your time?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Excellent. So I have some time later tonight at 5 or at 7. Which works best for you?
Well, let's see. My training doesn't wrap up till 6, so probably 7.
Good answer, Ryan. Good answer. Right, and so we set an appointment. We have a Zoom conversation, and there we have it. Right, and so again, that wasn't brilliant. All right, by any stretch of the imagination. Well, Ryan was brilliant. I was less brilliant. Right, and so the idea. But I wanted to just give you an idea of what a quick role-played conversation could be to help somebody understand that using statistics, there is benefit right now in the marketplace for someone who was a seller and didn't create success to now be a seller and maybe create success. And you may hit a whole bunch of people who are like, I thought I was selling my house 10 years ago because I thought I was getting a job down in Atlanta, and that ship has sailed. Got it. Right? And so maybe Ryan kind of turns me down flat. And so instead of continuing down the path of seeing if Ryan wants to be a seller, I turn that around to say, I totally get it. You know what? The last thing I'm doing is calling, trying to chase people out of homes that they enjoy living in. So I'm curious, Ryan, while I have you on the phone, if I could just ask you one last question. Knowing there's so much benefit in the market right now for sellers, I'm curious, do you know of anyone else who's having trouble selling their home? And I should really ask that differently. I should really ask it, who do you know that might be having trouble selling their home, right? So I turn it into a prospecting phone call for the potential of a referral if Ryan's not interested. You see how that works? It's pretty simple, right? Does that seem like you're calling and annoying people, or are you just offering them information to make sure that they know what the opportunities are for them or for someone they know? Maybe it's semantics. Maybe I justify this to make sure that I continue to do it. But to me, I'm simply offering a service. I'm offering an opportunity. Because by Ryan's own admission, he wasn't really paying close attention to what was going on in the market. I've already had those kinds of phone calls with old expireds from years ago that didn't turn into an appointment that day, but a couple of days or a couple of weeks later, all of a sudden you get a phone call. Hi, you might not remember me, but you called me a couple of weeks ago and we were talking about what was going on in the marketplace, and kind of thought about it a little bit more. And like, when you say a benefit, how beneficial are we talking? Because the conversation that you had created curiosity, right? And so that they've now been thinking about it a few days or a few weeks even, and now they want to know more. Has that ever happened to you? Someone said something to you that you didn't necessarily act on immediately, but you thought about it some more, and then you went back and thought, you know what? I can't help but being curious about that. I think I need to get a little more information.
Absolutely.
Is that something that you can see yourselves doing, providing that kind of a service to sellers who didn't create success the first time around years ago? And maybe it's months ago. Maybe you decide you're going to focus on expireds from the last 12 months. Maybe you're not going back as far as I'm talking about. However, sellers who attempted to sell their home in like 2009, 10, 11, 12, a lot of them didn't succeed, right? That was the last shift. And so you can use that knowledge, that data, in attempting to get some additional appointments, right? Yeah, Debbie.
What I would add is you always have a chance when you're in a conversation with somebody, and you don't when you're not. And the last couple months, I've had some fabulous success with my own expireds from 2012, 2015, and 2017.
Wow.
And they're all gone now. They're all sold. Okay. But they didn't sell before.
So, and again, that's not, Debbie's not a plant. I didn't know she was going to be on, and I didn't know that she was going to be, I didn't even know she was listening to this conversation about old expireds. Remember, you picked the topic. So there's proof, right, that not just one, but in the recent months, Debbie's had 3 calls that she's made to her own expireds to get them back on the market, to put them in benefits way, right? Because the market can deliver something different today than it could back when she had them on the market the first time. So I love that. And all 3 of them are now sold. Here's the other really powerful a benefit that you just got by hearing Debbie tell that story. The fact that you heard a colleague tell that story, you can now claim it as a my team and I story, right? You don't have to be able to say, I did this. You can have those conversations with people from the past, not your own expireds, and let them know my team and I have had great success recently with relisting properties that didn't sell 5-10 years ago, back when the market wasn't quite as robust for sellers. And I can tell you that at least in 3 circumstances I know, those homes are now sold. So as an aside, this is not necessarily relevant or specific to expireds. What I just said to you should resonate, especially if you're newer in the business or you're not used to using your own history as part of your script. And so I want to make sure that you all understand that as part of a larger team, if you just change the pronoun in what you're saying from I to my team and I, you can utilize any story that any of us tell. Part of the reason I like to tell you stories is because I want you to use them. I want you to use them as your own. Just don't say they're yours, because remember what we talked about earlier today. The truth is it needs to be a foundation for your business. Don't lie. But when you hear my stories or Debbie's stories or Donna's stories, Bogdan's stories, you can use them as your own by utilizing my team and I. Does that make sense? Cool beans. Current expireds. And Ryan, I am going to get to your question in a second. Let's talk current expireds. Current expireds are a little bit different, right? Because they've been on the market right now and have not sold. And so in your materials that I sent out today, you should all have received those materials. You got a bunch of current expired scripts. Now, in order to make sure that we get through our entire list of sources today, we're gonna keep the expireds conversation a little shorter than usual, because I expect in August I'm going to bring to you an expired class, right? We're gonna do kind of a multi-day expired class. So for those of you who are interested in diving into expireds at a deeper level, you will have that opportunity. So we're gonna do not quite a deep dive on the current expireds tonight. However, I do want you to take a look at those scripts that I sent. And I'm going to put one of them on the screen for you. Now let's talk just a little bit as this is all opening and we start to take a look at this. We'll go with Doris Carlin. Before we get there, talk to me a little bit. Remember, an expired is someone who has been on the market who hasn't had success. They haven't sold their property. You're giving them a shout the very first morning after the property expires, right? That's how you work the current expires. Talk to me a little bit about what you think sellers may be feeling the morning after their property expires from the MLS after sitting for 4 to 6 months, not obtaining an offer.
Frustration.
So frustration for sure, right? What else?
Resentment.
So resentment, perhaps, yeah.
Confused.
Confusion, absolutely. What else?
Defeated.
Defeated, absolutely.
Tired.
It's like tired. Yeah, they're a real
Surprised.
estate agent. Say it again.
Surprised.
Sometimes surprised. They don't even know that it fell off the market, right? That happens sometimes. Jennifer says that their real estate agent didn't work hard enough, right? So there could be some resentment towards the professional that they were working with. So here's the good news. If I ever need a thesaurus, I am coming right back to this room. That was well played. And yes, you can experience any and all of that, right? And it's part of the reason that people sometimes shy away from this as a source of business. And I'm going to suggest to you that I think that's a mistake for you. And I think it's a mistake because those of us who have called expireds consistently, what I think we would tell you is that you can run into some of that. And you also can run into people who are pleased to hear from you, people who are anxious to get the job done and are happy you called, people who are just kind of middle of the road. They're not upset. They're not joyous. So be careful that you don't tag owners of expired properties with all of those negative emotions. That's not to say that there are not many of them that have those negative emotions, right? But what I need you to remember is A, that's not all of them, and B, if they have those negative emotions, do any of those emotions have anything to do with you? No. You don't know these people from a hole in the wall. Right? The conversation that you just started is the first time you've ever spoken to them most of the time. So remember that regardless of what comes back, you're there to help. And when you build a business built on coming from contribution and assisting people and helping them in reaching their goals, you're not stopped by the potential of someone having a negative feeling, and you're not stopped by when you receive somebody with a negative feeling. Does that make sense to everybody? And so now let's just jump to, I want to just give you a quick idea of what this call looks like. And you see, you have a whole bunch of scripts that I sent you, right? We'll just start with this one. This is the Doris Carlin script. And so, so Debbie, could you unmute? Would you mind being my seller for a second?
Mm-hmm.
And so the first run through we're going to do, because again, we're going to spend a whole lot of time doing objection handling on this kind of stuff in our specific expired class. So do me a favor and just kind of just kind of play along to get us to an appointment. That does not mean, guys, that all of these calls go as simply and as quickly as what Debbie and I are going to demonstrate. But I want you to hear the through line of how these calls start. Sometimes they go in different directions, and yet they all kind of start the same way. So ring, ring.
Hello.
Yes, hi, is Mrs. Orr available, please?
Oh, yeah, that would be me.
Mrs. Orr, this is Rick Scott. I'm calling from Keller Williams Realty. I'm sure you figured out by now that I saw you come up today on the multiple listing service as an expired listing, and I was just calling to see when you might, calling to see if you're interested in getting your home sold.
Oh my goodness. So what is the deal? You guys didn't call me when I was on the market, and now I'm taking a break and I'm getting a bunch of calls from realtors. What's that about?
I'm certain it feels that way. I'm curious. Do you still have an interest in getting your home sold?
I think I do. We're a little bit tired of the whole process. It's been a little bit exhausting.
Yeah, I'm certain that's right. I completely understand that feeling. I'm curious, Mrs. Orr, had you sold your home, where were you going to move to?
We think we want to move to the Midwest.
Any place specific?
Probably someplace in Ohio where we have kids out there, and we'd like to join them and enjoy our grandchildren.
Very nice. Grandchildren. That sounds good. Is that ultimately what's taking you there? Is to be closer to the grandkids?
We think so. Some days more than others.
Yeah, I'm sure that's right. I'm curious, if you don't mind my asking, how many grandkids do you have out there?
3.
Very nice. Very nice. Excellent. And so just out of curiosity, were you able to sell the home the first time around? How soon did you actually want to be out in Ohio?
There's really no deadline.
Got it. And yet, if you had to pick a time, if you had your pick of any season to move, what would that be?
Well, probably before the end of the year. I have some concern about holidays this year.
Got it. So before the end of the year. Mrs. Orr, I'm curious if we could spend maybe 20 or 30 minutes together on a Zoom meeting, and I could explain to you how we create success for sellers who didn't quite find that success the first time around. Would that be something that would be interesting to you?
Well, I can't imagine what you're going to tell me that I haven't already experienced.
Yeah, it's funny. Most of my clients most of the clients that I list after them not selling the first time around say that exact same thing, and most of them are now sold past clients. So I personally think it would benefit us to have a 20 or 30 minute conversation. Is that something you'd be interested in?
Yeah, and you say Zoom? Do it in a Zoom meeting? You don't have to come over to my house first?
I don't. I think we can start the relationship safely on Zoom, and then if what I have to say sounds good to you, we can take that next step. How does that sound?
Sounds kind of interesting. Can you explain how to do the Zoom thing? Because
I absolutely can. If you can provide me with an email address, I can provide you not only with the link, but with all of the instructions. We have that all typed out for our clients.
Okay. All right.
Excellent. And so I'm curious, we do have some time later this afternoon at 5 or tomorrow at 6. Do either of those times work?
Yeah, I'm sure one of those would work. Let's do today at 5.
Today at 5. That sounds excellent. You know what? You can expect to receive that information within the next half hour. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to give a call back. Here's my number. And we'll look forward to seeing you at whatever time we just said. Have a great evening. Bye.
Okay.
I can't remember what we just said, sadly enough. So again, now guys, that was certainly not brilliant, right? It's been a really long time since I've actually called an expired live. And yet, what I wanted you to hear was kind of the through line of, hey, your home is no longer on the market. Then there's 3 questions. Are you still interested in selling your home? And regardless of Debbie's answer, yes, no, maybe, go to hell, we're tired, right? Who do you think you are? You heard what she said. My goodness, I didn't get this many phone calls when I was on the market. Now everyone's calling me like crazy. You validate it, you hear it, and then you move forward, right? In that instance, I chose to ask the same question again because I wanted to know whether or not Debbie was she was just upset that people were calling and still wanted to sell her home, or if she didn't really want to sell her home. So I asked the question again. What did you notice when I asked the same question the second time? Nobody noticed anything? Go ahead, Lisa.
She answered it. I mean, she approached it differently and thought about it differently and answered it.
That's exactly right. And I will tell you, I personally believe that in using scripts, if you ask a question and you don't quite get the answer that makes the best sense to move it forward, I don't think there's anything wrong, unless there obviously will be times where it would be weird, right? But I don't think there's anything wrong most of the time with asking the same question again to see if you get a different answer. Debbie's second answer brought me to more naturally where I wanted to go, which was, had you sold your home, where were you headed? Why on earth would I ask that question?
To see if they actually had a plan after they sold their house, to see if they were potentially serious about selling.
Exactly right, Lisa. And if I could put words in your mouth, I'm going to call that motivation, right? You're now attempting to uncover their motivation. Where are you going? When did you want to be there? Where are you going? What was bringing you there? I didn't end up having to ask the what was bringing you there question because Debbie volunteered the information before I asked the question.
I would add one thing. I think what you've demonstrated is that you don't have to know a ton about the property when you make these calls, because you're not going to sell them. You're not going to list them on the phone. You're getting an appointment, and it's more the motivation that gets you into the house to get the appointment.
So Debbie just said probably the most important thing that we've talked about so far this evening.
Do not research. Do not research. Do not research.
Well, here's the thing. When you're making prospecting calls, those calls are made for one reason and one reason alone. You're not listing the property on the telephone. You're calling to obtain an appointment to have a conversation about listing the property, right?
Relationship.
The whole idea of conversion on the telephone is close for the appointment. You're breaking the ice, right? Part of the reason we ask those motivation questions right up front is that it pivots the seller away from the negativity surrounding their failure. Everyone hear that? Right? It pivots them away from that and refocuses them on what was driving them to be a seller in the first place. In this case, I wanted to remind Debbie about those awesome grandchildren in Ohio. Because now, instead of thinking about how horrible real estate agents are and how abused and exhausted that she is because of what they just went through and how jerky the last real estate agent was and who did this and who, all of those things, I've now pivoted her into thinking about the happy reason why she became a seller in the first place. And now that I understand that she has a desire to be closer to her grandchildren, I can utilize that to not only close for an appointment, but now when I have an appointment with Debbie and we start talking about listing the property, I now understand what's driving the whole decision. And so when Debbie says something like, I think we're going to take a break. Got it. I'm curious, Debbie, I just have a quick question for you. How, knowing that you indicated that you were headed to Ohio to be closer to your grandkids, how much more time do you think, how much of a break do you want to give to the one thing that will get you out to your grandchildren faster? How much older do you think you want your grandchildren to get before you head out there to spend more time with them? I'm curious, how old are they now? Oh, wow. My goodness. So, you know, at least one of them, before you know it, will be a teenager. Oh boy. I don't know about you, but my experience as a teenager was I didn't want to spend too much time with my grandchildren. So I'm just curious, does it make sense for us to take steps forward now, knowing that there's benefits in the marketplace and benefits for you to get closer to your family faster? I don't know, I'm just making this stuff up. But my point is, once I understand what's pulling her out there, I get to use it to remind her about why she's a seller. I think a lot of people forget why they're sellers to begin with. And when we don't uncover that ourselves, there's no way for us to help them because we don't understand what's driving the decision. And now it just becomes about getting a listing instead of helping someone achieve a goal. Do you see how different that is? Do you see how much more power and how much more personal it is when I can cycle back? I purposely asked Debbie how many grandchildren she had because I want to be able to use that later on. It's also a personal question. I'm testing the waters. I'm going to ask her how many grandchildren she has. If she shuts that down, I know I have to come at this a little bit differently. If she opens up and tells me how many grandchildren she has, well, she's now just shared additional personal information with me. We're already creating this weird bond and we don't even know each other. That helps you solidify an appointment because you sound different. You sound like a human. You sound like someone who cares about them instead of cares about a commission. Is this making sense to you guys? What are your thoughts around it? Talk to me a little bit about how it feels. I'm curious. Hey, John.
Hi. It's slowing things down in a way, you know. I've worked in the restaurant industry and the same sort of principles apply. You know, you don't if you're focused on the wrong thing, then you're not going to have that right approach. You're not going to have that sort of moment with that person, not be able to make that connection. So sort of slowing those things down and just being a human being and realizing they are too. Then if you make that connection, then I think everything sort of flows from there. But
yeah, 100%. I agree with that. I agree. What else, Lisa?
Well, I totally agree with what John said, but I think it's just making them feel like, well, as you say, you're different, but also I think I've been in sales for many, many years, and it's not always about the sale. It's about, as Bogdan has said many times, it's about creating that relationship of trust, and that's where it all starts. So makes sense.
100%. What else, Donna?
So I love where Lisa was going at the beginning there and just saying it does make you sound different from everyone else that is calling them. And therefore you stand out in the crowd and they may think, wow, well, this person actually does have my interests at heart. I mean, it's a real differentiator.
So true. So true. Guys, I'll tell you the treating people like people will win you more than just business. It will win you loyalty. It will win you. It will win you being remembered, even if you don't get the listing. Even if the person decides to take it off the market. Again, don't judge your success by the result so much in this scenario. Judge your success by, did I further the relationship, right? Because sometimes you do that, right? Debbie, you call expires every day. Sometimes you further the relationship and you don't get the appointment, or you do get the appointment and they choose not to list. But what happens weeks or months later sometimes?
Well, I call expireds because it is such an opportunity to, and I'm going to use the word rescue, people who have a sincere need to move. And it sounds a little melodramatic, but some of the conversations that I have with people and their recognition that there's a difference in the experience that they're having now from what they had, and they are desperate to move. It's the reason that I do it, because I know that I'm doing good and it makes it easy. That conversation, what you just said and Donna said around just having that conversation, makes it easy to get your foot in the door, and then you get the opportunity to help the people out. It's really, it's cool.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, my experience, and those of you who have worked expireds for some time, I think would agree with this. There is a level. Agents oftentimes don't make these phone calls because A, they think they're always contentious, which is untrue, and B, they think that the people on the other side resent the fact that you're calling them. And our experience has been that when you do it properly, there's gratitude on the other side. They are grateful for the outreach. They're grateful for the telephone call. Thank you for attempting to help me. You know what? Thank you. Right? So I'm hoping that we're dispelling some of the myths about expireds, because I feel like I oftentimes teach expireds as a source of business, and people hear that and think, okay, well, that's great for somebody else. Let's get on to the ones that I'm really going to do. And I think there's so much opportunity to help more people, both old and new expireds, that I wanted to be certain that we came at it from a slightly different angle tonight to help dispel some of the myths of people eating their young. That's not how it works typically, right? Okay, so there's a couple of questions in the chat box I want to make sure I answer. Ryan asks, would you approach canceled listings differently than expireds, understanding the owner is likely the driving force to cancel? So my answer is, I don't know that I would do too much different for an expired, except to say, I noticed that your home was canceled off of the MLS. I'm curious, are you still interested in getting your home sold? And then I would move right through the motivation questions, right? And so maybe if they are driving the cancellation, they may be more open to a conversation, and so you might be able to get to an appointment ask faster, or an appointment yes faster with a canceled. But I don't know that I would do anything all that different. I think the scripts are relatively the same. You want to introduce, get some motivation, and then close for an appointment. Jennifer says, sorry if this is a stupid question. I told you there's no such thing as a stupid question. So what if the expired listing is from your own agency? And that is far from a stupid question. That's an excellent question, right? And here's the answer to that. Inside of our own world, you owe each other a version of respect that says in expireds. So say Debbie has an expired listing that expires, and I'm calling through and I see, oh, that was somebody in my own office. I would do one of two things. Me personally, I would skip it. I would move on to, there's tons of business where we don't have to kind of take from each other, right? If I chose to offer my services to that person, the kind of unwritten rules that we have inside of our own organization, again, from a level of respect, is before I make a phone call to that expired seller, I'm going to make a phone call to Debbie to say, hey, Debbie, it's Rick. I'm just going through my expired calls, and I see that your listing over at 123 Main Street came up as expired. Is there anything I should know about that? Do you think you'll relist it? Is there, anything you can tell me about that? And then Debbie can simply say, yes, we expired it and it's coming back on at 3 o'clock today. Or she can say, you know what, you can have those people. If I never talk to those people ever again in my entire life, that would be fine. Go for it, right? But I do owe her a conversation first. You're not necessarily calling for permission, but you're calling as colleagues to have a conversation around it. Now, I will tell you, sometimes when you do that, the person that you're calling, there's a level of upset around losing that listing, and they're not terribly thrilled that you're calling saying that you might make a phone call, right? Which is why, for me, with people in my own office, I would just rather skip them and move on to other business, right? Does that help answer that, Jennifer? Yeah. So respect for each other and courtesy to each other comes before a business decision, right? That has to start first, and then the business decision about how to move forward. Bogdan.
What about if you have a client and he might be interested in that expire?
Yeah, so that's a great. Now, if it was somebody in my own office, so I'm going to answer this two ways. Go back to the example of Debbie. If I have a buyer client who all of a sudden says, you know what, I think I really want to go see that 123 Main Street again because I'd ruled it out, but now it's going to be great. And it expires overnight and Debbie's in my office, I'm calling Debbie to say, hey, you know what, I think I have a buyer opportunity for 123 Main Street. Can you get that back so that we can get my folks in there? Even if it's just simply for my one buyer.
My question was more towards if it's expired, let's say a month, 2 months, 3 months.
And it's somebody in the office?
Yes.
Yeah, so again, for me, I show up to work every day, and I have to look and work with these people every single day. So if it's me, I would have that same conversation. Hey, Debbie, what's the deal with 123 Main Street? I know it expired a month or two ago. I have people who are interested. Is there a possibility that you could maybe get me in there, even if it's just on a one-off, like list the property again, just for us to be able to get my people in? I would make that phone call first.
How does that differ from if it's a Coldwell Banker agent?
Yeah, and so if it's a Coldwell Banker agent, now this is me personally. You can choose a different path. For me personally, if it's not somebody in our office, I'm calling the seller directly. Period. End of story. That's free game, right? And so I'm going on the attack. There's a level of aggressiveness that I bring to business that says if you're not listed, you're fair game, except if it has the potential of ruining my relationship with somebody in my own office. And here's how I'll further answer that. If in fact you choose to step all over the relationships of the people in your own office, that comes back to bite you fast, right? And here's the other thing I'll say. We've got to continue to move in the direction of always making decisions from abundance and not scarcity, right? Because part of the reason that people are afraid to have conversations with agents in the office, well, there's two reasons. Sometimes agents feel like, it's an experienced agent, and I'm kind of new, and so they'll be mad at me, and I can tell you that almost never happens, right? They might not be thrilled with this scenario, but the fact that you reached out to them first doesn't make people upset. It actually underlines who you are and how you choose to behave. The second reason is that there's a thought that they might lose something by making that outreach to another agent in the office, right? And that's where I say the integrity and the respect and the courtesy we have to bring to each other inside of this organization always outweighs the business benefits of doing something different. It's so massively important. It's what keeps us focused as a team. It's what helps us create a business family other than just a place to list and sell real estate. And it's what sets this organization apart, right? And it's massively important to me, right? So that's my example. That's my answer if that helps. I forget where the question came from. What if the expired was priced too high and they still refuse to change lower? So we're going to talk about that when we talk about the listing consultation. So put a pin in that a little bit, because this conversation is really to help you understand what the opportunity for expireds is and what those first couple of scripts are to help you start to close for an appointment, right? And so if we can, Jennifer, remind me, and we'll dial back into that, because there is an answer to it, but we're not quite there yet. When we get to the listing consultation and the pricing version of that, we'll have a longer conversation around that. All right, guys, so where are we? 5:26. All right. Back to our sources. We've been through for sale by owners. We've been through expireds. And my hope is that by going through those two opportunities, you've also heard and learned some things about the do's and the do nots in terms of how you can be speaking into your database. Oh, let's do something fun. Debbie, do you have another 5 minutes on the call? So let's do something fun. So because Debbie's trying out something that I think is really cool, and I'd love for her to just quickly explain what she's doing. It's a version of helping your database. Oh, my head got cut off. Helping your database call you instead of you calling your database, right? And so here's an example of what we're talking about, right? Call in to win a green egg mini, and then it has all of Debbie's stuff on the back. But it's this opportunity that she's pushing out to her database to call her and her team members. And I'd like for her to just kind of talk a little bit about the concept behind it and how you're going to use it to try and create business.
So we have heard about this concept. It's called a reverse bold 100. In bold, you contact 100 people per week in your outbound lead generation, 20 people a day. And somebody in the process in bold said, oh, I'm so tired of making those outbound calls. Why can't I get them to call me? And that was the birth of this concept. So it involves something that gets people's attention, and they really are tempted by. So they look at it and say, huh, I might like that, but I wouldn't pay whatever it costs to buy it for myself. And then we reach out. So we've included, this is the first time we're doing this, so we're kind of stumbling our way through it. We gave ourselves about 3 weeks of advance time to set it up. We're reaching out. The idea is in as massive a way as we possibly can on all the different channels that we have available to us. So it's social media, Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn. It's phone calls, it's emails, and it's the direct mail letter. So we have a group of people, about 700 or 800, that we send at least quarterly something to. This is probably only our second, maybe our third. I think it's our third mailing for this year. And so they got that. And then we're wrapping a couple of other things into it because we can. One is we have what we call our Locals Supporting Locals initiative. So we made a point of, and in our emails to people and our phone calls to people, we're supporting local business. So we bought our Green Egg Mini from Ridgefield Hardware. We could have bought it probably somewhere cheaper. We bought it there on purpose because we are locals supporting locals. And second thing is, in our emails and our phone calls, we're telling people, for everyone who dials in that day, and it's a week from today, from 11 o'clock in the morning until 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We limited it because we're 100% on duty at that point. We're not going to be doing anything but being ready to receive phone calls. we said for everyone who calls in, we will contribute $5 to a local food pantry. So they get a chance to be a mensch and have us give money to a food pantry. They have a chance to win a Green Egg Mini, which is very cool. It's a griller and a smoker. And we have a chance to build our database. That's what it's all about. It's getting accurate, current information, contact information about people we already know and people we don't know. So we are sending these things out to Sphere, past clients, people who have come to public open houses, internet leads that have come through Facebook campaigns, internet leads who have come through Market Leader, and some listing to leads from all different sources, Zillow leads and Realtor.com leads. All those guys are getting, because we have emails from them, right? So all those people are getting these things, and they're getting them multiple times. We are aiming to have no fewer than 10 touches to virtually everybody who's getting one touch. And we're going to see, I don't know, where our aim is to have 100 people call us. And the teams the other day said, well, I think it'd be good if we had 200 people call us. Okay, I'm open. 100, 150, 200, it'll be good. The goal here is database enhancement.
Well, and so what I love about this, and we'll certainly keep you all posted as to because this is next Friday, I think, right? Yeah.
Yes.
So it's a week from today. So we'll know by the time I see you a week from tonight what the results were. So we'll make sure we bring them back to you. And it's such a fabulous idea to create excitement and energy. It's a great idea to create opportunity for people. People feel like that giving people a chance to win is often good enough, even if they don't win, because you make them feel like they're important. You're giving them an opportunity to get something great, right? This cooker, by the way, costs like $400, right? $800.
Actually, it's $5.98.
Right.
We got it at Ridgefield Hardware.
Oh yeah, so it probably costs $1,500. Yeah, I think you can get them at Costco for like $99. No,
no, stop.
Right. So, but what Debbie's point is, does this take an investment of money? Yes. But if she has 100 or 200 people call, do you realize in 3 or 4 hour period, she can connect with more people than she would connect with if her and the team were dialing for a month, right? And so the idea of having them call you for something awesome like this not only sends a message, but it gives you an opportunity to A, do all that database enhancement, and B, ask the question, right? Make sure that the script before they hang up, hey, before I let you go, knowing how fast the market is moving and the benefits that exist for both buyers and sellers, who do you know that we might be able to assist in buying, selling, or creating wealth by investing in real estate, right? So you get to do your little, oh, by the way, and they called you. So what if they say, you know what, that's a great question. My niece actually, or us, or what do you mean creating wealth by investing in real estate? Easy peasy, lemon squeezy, right?
And we give them multiple choice opportunities to have multiple entries when we're on the phone with them. Oh, by the way, since we're talking, would you like another entry into this drawing? All you have to do is like us on Facebook, or either friend us on Facebook, or like our business page on Facebook, or our Instagram. Or if you have a spouse, if they call in, they get their own entry. So it's not one per family, it's one per person, or multiples per person.
Love it. Love it. So just as an idea, again, for those of you who look at this and say, okay, I have to reach out to my database. Well, what if you started to have a program where quarterly, you were having your database reach out to you, right? To me, if this goes the way I think it will go, that little green eggs and ham thing, whatever it is, it could have cost $2,500, right? 4 times a year to spend $500, $300. Maybe it's dinner and a movie, you know, when we can do dinner and movie again. Maybe it's a limo ride that you're auctioning off. What was one of the ideas that we heard that guy say? The first one he did was around Valentine's Day. He made reservations at like the best restaurant in town, and then purposely waited to the last minute to have people call in, because then he got the desperate people who didn't make their own reservations calling in to win a prize that made sense for them, right? So there's all those kinds of cool ideas.
He said he only started that on the Monday before the Friday. I mean, it was a very short amount of time. The other thing is we're also predicting our next call in to win, and we're going to have a poll on, I think they decided Instagram is where you can do a poll, and we're going to ask the people, would you rather our next in September call in to win is a portable fire pit or a Yeti cooler? So those are the 2 choices, and we'll take the poll and then we're going to choose that. We'll buy that for our next one.
Oh, that's a great idea. So always be pushing them towards that.
We are doing and again, I'm going to say this squeeze the orange thing. Rick had a class on squeezing the orange, getting more out of whatever it is you're doing. We're trying to take this to the max right now.
Got it. Donna.
Debbie, could you just go in a little deeper and just share how it turns into all the multiple touches? You said you'll generate 10 touches. Could you just explain that a little bit more?
So I have a schedule every single day. We talk about what channel we're going to focus on. So we're either focused on social media or email or phone calls or email,
text.
phone calls, social media, text. Yes, there you go. So everybody gets something in a different format, one way or another. And so the easy ones are the ones that we can do, mass blasts. And the phone calls may or may not get the phone calls, because we've got quite a few people I sent out yesterday, I kept track of it, approximately, I don't have my number right in front of me, but it had to have been 1,000 by the time I was done, emails. And by the way, because it was at least that, because 500 of them were through command email, which everybody has 5,000 free command emails every month. It resets on the 1st. I was going to send out an email today and say, be sure you've used up your 5,000 by next Friday, because it resets again on Saturday.
And also, you also have the opportunity when you're doing this to announce it and then remind them.
That's the idea. Yeah, totally.
And then this is what happened.
We change the message a little bit every time. One has the local supporting locals, and one has the charities, and this, that, and the other. Yeah.
Well, here's what's cool about that. So thank you for that. We're excited to
It's the fun part. I'm telling you, it takes some of the, it's lead generation time. Everybody's excited about this. We made a video the other day in the frigging hot sun. It was ridiculous, but we had a blast doing it. We just had fun with it. So
win a cooker.
I saw you. It was fun.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we're grilling ourselves, right?
Yeah. All righty. So again, think outside of the box, right? This does not always have to be you reaching out to people. You can create opportunities for people to reach out to you. And for a whole bunch of you, you're thinking, that affords me a whole lot of opportunity that maybe I didn't think I had before, right? So again, this to me is like the idea of the year, that if more and more of you will begin to start reaching out to your database in this manner, I think it's a winner of an idea, regardless of of the actual results, because over time you're going to see massive results.
I need one more second of your time. You have to see one of those grandchildren. My son just sent me a new picture of Carter. Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness. Ohio, here I come.
Yeah, she wasn't kidding. That's not the one that's close to being a teenager.
No.
Because actually they really live in Houston, but
No. What? Well, and Caitlin is 10. You can't believe that. She'll be 11.
Close.
Yeah, right.
All right, so let's run through as many of the remaining prospecting sources as we can, so that Monday we can dive into some command work. I'm also going to have I think we're going to have Jen Henry talk to you, as well as Karen Mulreed talk to you. So lots of different guests on Monday. Where do you want to go next? Look at your list.
Geofarming?
So geographic farming. So geographic farming, let's talk a little bit about geographic farming, right? Geographic farming ultimately means, what is farming? What's the definition of farming? And I don't mean like plowing the fields and pulling up the potatoes and things.
Around the house? Around your home?
No, that's gardening. So ultimately, the definition of farming is, think about what farming actually means, right? When you're really a farmer, you tend to a certain area, you tend to a certain piece of land, you tend to the soil, you plant seeds, you water it, and you tend to it over time. So it's a cultivation, an active cultivation, right, on a certain piece of land or a certain area. Farming in business is the exact same thing. You choose an area, you choose a demographic or a geographic area. We'll start with geofarming, right? You choose a geographic area, and you start planting seeds, and over time you cultivate the fruit from those seeds. And so what that ultimately means is picking a spot. Geographic farming is just that. It's you pick an area of 200 or 400 homes, and you create some program, and the program is typically via snail mail, right? Because that's how you're going to start making inroads into that area, and you mail something monthly. I can encourage you that what people want to see has everything to do with real estate and statistics, not necessarily recipes or kittens or things like that. Perhaps if you're a veterinarian or a chef, you should be sending kittens and or recipes, but you're not. You're realtors, right? And so you want to send people information about the housing market. You want to send people pictures about things you've sold. You want to send people information about how to stage their property, or resources to help them with landscaping or stuff like that. So relevant real estate related things that go out monthly. Now, that may sound ridiculously old-fashioned. And it is ridiculously old-fashioned. However, the interesting news is that just because something is old-fashioned doesn't mean it doesn't work today, right? And so what I would encourage each of you to do, regardless of where you are in your business development, is if you don't have a geographic farm, pick one and start working it. I've been saying this for a number of years, and the idea of it became far more relevant in the last couple of months. And what I've been attempting to teach people is when you have an area of 200 or 400 homes that you're constantly diving into and constantly mailing things to, constantly doing that simple touch, right? It's just the touching the forehead. You want them to see your name related to real estate, because the reality is most of those postcards go where? In the garbage, right? They go in the garbage. That's okay. Because before they go in the garbage, if they're anything like me at my house, they look at the front, they look at the back, and then they throw it in the garbage. So as long as they look at the front and look at the back and get some version of your name and real estate, you've done exactly what you were aiming to do. Don't be discouraged by the lack of, because you don't mail 400 people a postcard and get 27 phone calls to come list my house. That's not the way it works, right? The return is small, a couple of percentage points, small, and that's after 12 to 24 months of consistent mailing. Better yet, door knock through that same neighborhood so that people can now meet you, right? Door knocking maybe a little bit whatever today, right? I know we have some people who are door knocking who kind of do the knock, 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 and then step back and hold their hands up with their gloves and make sure that they have their mask on, right? Here's some statistics to show you why this is important. They do a lot of things, right? And so this particular they, a number of years ago, chose a small 250 or so house gated community out in Colorado. I think it was outside of Boulder, right? And if you've ever been to Colorado, they have those communities that they build a wall around. They build the same 3 houses over and over again, and that's the neighborhood. And so it was one of those communities. And what they chose to do was they chose to send postcards, just like this, monthly to the neighborhood. And the realtor was John Smith, right? And so it was John Smith did it again. John Smith sold that. Here's the neighborhood stats. Here's what's going on in the market. Here's some staging tips. So it was John Smith every single month with real estate related information with his name and brand on the postcard. And after 12 months of that, they dialed through the entire neighborhood. And they asked 2 questions. And the results were kind of fascinating. The first question they asked was, if you were going to list your home for sale tomorrow, which realtor would you choose? And about 40, maybe it was high 30s, but right around 40% of the respondents in this 250-person community, household community, responded, I would use John Smith. After 12 months of consistently mailing real estate-related stuff. So when someone then called and asked a real estate-related question, 40 or so % of people said they would use John Smith. Now here's the fascinating statistic. They asked a second question. And the second question was, before I let you go, who sold you your house? And about 22 to 23% of the respondents said, John Smith. Now, what makes that fascinating is that John Smith didn't exist. They made him up. There was just some picture of a guy with John Smith on it that they mailed 12 times over the course of a year. And almost a quarter of the people said that he had sold them their house. So if you think that geographic farming doesn't work in terms of capturing mind share of people, that story, that experiment, those statistics should prove something very, very different. And so what I've been asking people to do for a number of years is, even if it's not your main source of income, cultivate a 200 to 400 household area via geographic farming. Because if you start it now, even if it's not your main source of business, which it won't be in the beginning, when or if some of your other sources that you've chosen somehow start to go dry, for example, end of March of 2020, when all of a sudden physical open houses stopped being a reality for almost 2 or 3 months, you have something you have a safety net. You have something to rely on. You can still mail and you can still call. So I look at the geographic farming as a bit of a safety net. And when you do it well, over time, it can create gravy business for your business every single year. Does that make sense to everybody? You can do geographic farming. You can do demographic farming. Maybe you're going to decide to specialize in seniors, right? And so you run some statistics. Typically, you hire a company to run who are all the seniors in this particular area. Find 200 to 400 seniors, and you start mailing things that seniors want to hear. Maybe you choose a condo complex. Maybe you choose a complex where you know there's a lot of renters, because a lot of your information could be turn renters into buyers. You get to make your choice as to what little area you want to cultivate, but I do encourage you to cultivate an area, because I think it comes back to pay you back over time. All right, we've got 8 minutes left. I'm going to describe an agent-to-agent referral system that I want to throw your way, and then we'll talk about social media and open houses on Monday, I promise. Agent referral system. This is one of those ideas that I would encourage, especially those of you who are new or newer to the business, to get done now. Because my own personal experience and my experience in coaching real estate agents is this idea dies fast once you get busier. So when you're less busy, especially if you're new or newer to the business and you're less busy, now is the perfect time to get this in place. So here's what it is. Agent-to-agent referral networks can be built a bunch of different ways. You have a KW referral network inside of Command where you can go and find people across the country. You have an awesome opportunity, and I'll show this to you on Monday. You have an awesome opportunity to use the AI that Command is continuing to develop bigger and better to find out where referrals to your town or your territory that you serve are coming from inside of the referral network, right? So as the referral network gets used more and more and more and more, you can go in and say, okay, so I work the Norwalk market. Where are referrals coming to Norwalk from? And it'll list places. Okay, so 8% of the referrals that were sent on this network to Norwalk, Connecticut were sent from Houston, and 7% were sent from San Diego. And so if it were me then, I would then start running ads in those areas. So I'm gonna run a Facebook ad in Houston for looking for buyers relocating to Connecticut, because clearly our data is telling us that the top hits for these particular areas in and around us are from X, Y, and Z. Really cool data that allows you to get really specific and targeted. And so we'll talk more about that on Monday as well with social media and give you a quick run through in terms of where to look for that in Command, right? What I'm going to attempt to do on Monday is finish source of business and then show you quickly what the CRM looks like and how to get people how to get contacts into the CRM in Command, and show you where the referral network is and where you find the migration patterns that I just talked about, and show you where and how to run Facebook ads through Command. That's my goal. It's a lofty goal, but I hope to be able to deliver that to you on Monday. Please just know that I personally will not be teaching you anything about Command, because I'm good at a lot of things and Command is not yet one of them. So I will bring in the experts to help to make sure that you have the information that you need, but that's when that will be. Does that answer that question, Niels? So the agent-to-agent referral network. Let me explain an idea that I used when I was new to the business, right? So you have opportunities inside of that. You have opportunities to attend things, right? So once we get back to non-digital versions of things like Mega Camp or Family Reunion or regional events or training programs, things like that, meeting agents and putting them into command and then touching them over time. But while we're not able to necessarily do that, I encourage you to try out this idea. What I did was I took the map of the United States and I circled, starting in the northwest, excuse me, with Seattle, and then moving down to Portland and San Francisco and LA and San Diego, and just kind of went down the West Coast and then across the country. And I circled the top 30 to 35 major markets in the United States, right? And a major market is simply defined as big city, right? Because it's big city and suburbs, typically. You can pretty easily, working from west to east, find 35 major markets in the United States. Then go online. And I don't say the Z word too often, but this is actually kind of a good use of the Z word. So go to Zillow and find the top 3 listing agents in each of those 35 major markets. On Zillow, you can see who's sold the most listings, who's got the most, because they kind of rank people, right? So you can go there and find the top 3. Now, I didn't say the top 3 Keller Williams agents in that market. I said the top 3 agents. To me, this would be brand blind. I want the most productive people, and I want the most productive listing agents. Why do I want listing agents? Because they're the ones who are listing the properties, which means people are moving out of the house, right? You don't necessarily want the buyer's agents because you're not looking necessarily for people to send business to. Like you can if you have it, but you're looking for people to send business your way, right? So the listing agents are the ones who have people who are selling their house locally and perhaps moving towards you. So I want those listing agents. And then I'm going to make a simple phone call. And let me demonstrate the phone call for you. Who wants to, Spencer, could you unmute for me? And just be the agent that I'm calling, right? You don't need any experience to answer these questions, I promise you.
Great.
All right, so ring, ring.
Hello?
Yeah, hi, is this Spencer?
Yes, this is.
Spencer, it's Rick Scott with Keller Williams Realty in Connecticut. How you doing today?
Good, yourself?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for asking. Hey, listen, I've just been doing some research. I'm building an agent referral network, and it looks like you are just absolutely killing it in Seattle. How's business going?
Oh, it's been a great year. Yeah, things are going well.
That's awesome. Everybody safe and healthy in your house?
Yeah, thank God.
Yeah, indeed, indeed. I'm glad to hear that. So listen, Spencer, the reason for my call today is as I said, I'm building a referral network, and I'm curious, are you willing and able to accept and receive inbound referrals when I might have people locating from Connecticut to Seattle? Are you able to serve
absolutely.
Business?
Yeah, that sounds great.
That's perfect. That's perfect. So I'm going to jot your name down right here. I appreciate that so much. And hey, before I let you go, do you have at least 2 people that you refer business to in Connecticut?
I think in that area of Connecticut, I don't.
Oh, excellent, excellent, excellent. So would you mind maybe adding me as an outbound referral source for when you have people coming to my neck of the woods?
Yeah, definitely.
That's perfect. And so let me just make sure I have your email address and your correct. And so it's Spencer at whatever. Let me do this. Let me send you an email, and I'll send you all my contact information and kind of the territory that I serve. If it's all right with you, I'm going to add you to my referral network, and so that'll just generate kind of a reminder of me and the opportunity in Connecticut each month. And as soon as I have somebody headed your way, you'll be my first call.
Sounds great, Rick.
That sounds perfect. Spencer, thanks so much for taking my call. Have a great rest of your year.
Yeah, you too.
Okay, bye-bye. Pretty simple call, right? Is there any reason that Spencer won't take that call or won't entertain the conversation? How did I start it off? Did I start asking for something or giving something?
Giving.
Give. I'm just wondering if I can send you business. No one's going to say no to that, right? Why did I ask him if he had at least 2 referral sources in Connecticut?
Because someone may have gotten there first.
Because sometimes people have people around the country, right? And what I have learned is that when I ask, do you have a referral source in Connecticut? Sometimes the answer is yes. And so then I'm forced to say, oh, well, could you use another one? So I just started asking, do you have 2? No one has ever said yes to that. No one has ever said, yes, I have 2 exactly where you are. So because if they did, I'd say, great, could you use a 3rd? But it's never happened. But be prepared just in case it does, right? And so I go through, and now I'm going to call the other 2 people in Seattle. And now I'm going to move on to the 3 in Portland and the 3 in San Francisco, and on and on and on. And so now I've got over 100 people that have agreed to receive business from me if and when I have it. But more importantly, they've agreed to send business as part of my referral network in my database. So that's step number 1. Step number 2 is you develop a drip campaign that every single month they get a simple email from you. It doesn't matter what you send, because frankly, the ones I get, I never open. So what I did was I made sure that my name, the state of Connecticut, and the word referral was in the subject line every single time. So they saw it was from me, and it said, you know, Happy New Year from your referral source in Connecticut. Happy Spring. Any Connecticut-bound referrals, question mark? Right, so it was always my name, which is the from, the word Connecticut, and the word referral. And that just over time allows you to capture mind share with 100 agents across the country. Now, when you finish that, then you go back to your map. And now I want you to circle 35 secondary markets and do the same thing. And then when you're done with that, I want you to go back and circle 35 tertiary markets and do it again. And then you can kind of stop, because now you've got 300 to 350 real estate agents across the country in all the primary, secondary, and tertiary markets that make sense, that are sending business to Connecticut in your database that you're touching. I guarantee you within the first 12 months, business starts to come from that. Now, again, in all honesty, I only did the first 100, because then I started to get busy and I never went back to it. That was a mistake. Don't make my mistakes. It's a simple conversation that nobody, and I'm not kidding, nobody said no to me. Nobody said, why are you bothering me? Nobody said, so I'm curious, how much business have you sold? How long have you been in the business? Nobody asked any of that, because I called and said, hey, I want to send you business. Is that okay? Great. And oh, by the way, if you also happen to have stuff coming my way, would you mind sending it to me? Like, my needs were like secondary, but I made sure that their needs that were primary. Nobody ever said no to that. So I think building an agent-to-agent referral network like that has massive benefits. And you know what? It's like compound interest. Over time, the benefits are enormous. We are out of time, so I will tell you a story that proves what I just said on Monday. Well, we got a lot to do on Monday, don't we? Pushing everything to Monday. I'll tell you that story on Monday, but it's a validating story, and it's an important one. Guys, thank you as always. I appreciate you being here, especially late on a Friday night. Have an awesome weekend. I promise to make Monday sing for you with the things that I've promised, and I will probably see you around 5 o'clock on Monday, because you'll have some guests kind of walking you through a couple of things for the first part of Monday. Please don't forget that at some point on Monday, once I arrive on the scene, we will have a conversation about reporting a simple number, and that is how many appointments did you create in week number 1, right? Many of you said that 1 was your number. Some of you said 2 was your number, right? Let's be accountable to what we've said and work. If you have 0 appointments figured out at this point, use the weekend, get those appointments booked. Those of you who are not licensed, get them booked anyway, and we'll connect you with a licensee. There are tons of people on this call who have licenses who say, I'd be happy to help you. Have a great weekend, guys. Take care.